Welcome to Your Iconic Image. If you want to take control of your image and be a power player in your space, then this is the show for you. Here we will arm you with tools and information to help you grow your brand on purpose. I'm your host, Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Now let's dive into today's episode. Michelle Kuei is an international speaker, certified visibility coach, content marketing strategist, and author. As the founder of Elevate LifeCoaching, Michelle mentors women to use the power of storytelling as their secret sauce. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So why do you think we struggle so much with that, especially as women?
I think number one is there's a lot of limiting belief. As women, we have this idea of there needs to be a perfect image of who we are. And that perfect image is oftentimes shaped by, what is outside of us and not really what's inside of us, right? So we grew up watching these beautiful, iconic figures on television, in the news magazines, and we started to kind of mimic or have a role model. I don't know who your role model is, but when I was little, I remember there's this singer, and I grew up in Taiwan. So there's this singer, and she's beautiful. She has like cute little hair. She's dressed up all the time, and she's just like very, very iconic, very beautiful, right? And so I grew up thinking that is how every woman should be. That's how I want to be. And so the ideal image that we grew up with really shaped our beliefs in adulthood and moving into a lot of things that we do. So like for the health and wellness industry, people are jumping onto like juicing, all these different diets, intermittent diet. Why? Because we're trying to live up with certain expectation that we believe that is important to us. And so we really fail to look at what the beauty that we hold inside. If I were to look like, Kardashian, that's probably a bad example. But if I were to look like Kardashian, the girl next door also wants to look like Kardashian. So we're walking around looking all like Kardashian. But is that who you truly are? No.
Right. And the interesting thing about it too is people don't seem to realize that even the models that we see in magazines, they don't look like the model that you see in the magazine. That's a lot goes into it. A lot goes
Photoshop.
Into it. Right. And I'm not saying that these aren't beautiful women, but a lot goes into it.
Yeah. I think, when we look at pretty pictures or images, we forget that these are just there's more than just a visual, right? It's the level of confidence. It's the level of how they stand out in the public, the way that they talk. There are certain elements of the quality that we can see it through the pictures, but when you see them on television, when they're talking, when they're speaking, there's personality that shine through that image, and that together becomes a package of what you known as the Kardashian, the what's her name in the Harry Potter, the Harry Potter Hermione.
Uh-huh.
And she's British and she's beautiful. She's very elegant. Every time she stands on the podium, it's like there's a level of confidence that's coming out from her. So every image that we see of her on media, it's like, okay, I really like this woman. Why? Because you know her as a person and you know how she speaks. So there's that personality touch that you don't see. We don't recognize just from looking at the pictures.
Mm. And, I want to go back because I read your story about hiking Machu Picchu. And I feel like in that story, you took control of your narrative because it could have gone a very different direction. So tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, so the story actually, before I talk about the Machu Picchu, let's go back just a little bit, maybe to when I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
a lot back. So when I was 11, I had a big car accident, and that car accident resulted in permanent damage. So I am physically disabled. I am fortunately not paralyzed, but I do need to walk with crutches. So my entire adulthood, I've been walking with crutches, and I'm only 4 feet 4 inches tall. My legs are crooked, and every pair of my jeans, I have to bring it to a tailor to get it seamed. So growing up, I was nothing compared all the images that we see in the magazine, on the television, because I don't belong anywhere. And when I was in my 40s, it's hard to believe that how long it takes for someone to recognize the beauty that's inside rather than outside. It took me 40 years or 30 something years. So when I was 40, I woke up one day and I'm like, this is not the way I want to live the rest of my life, and I need to make a change. And so I started into this fitness journey. Next thing you know, I decided to book myself a ticket, flew myself to Cusco, Peru, and I went on an Inca Trail hike through 26 miles of Inca Trail to Machu Picchu. I spent 4 days in the mountain, pushing down every step onto my crutches. And it was just a very, very physical endurance journey. And I remember it was the second day when I reached the peak of Machu Picchu in the Inca Trail. It was at the Dead Women's Pass. I wonder why they called it Dead Women's Pass. Because by the time you make up there, you're like half gone. So the Dead Women's Pass is 14,000 feet above sea level. So there was a lot of like pulmonary symptoms. I had trouble breathing, and I keep stopping. So it was just a very physical, enduring experience. But through that journey, it was just because there's 4 days and I was just on that hike, and every step, there's nothing else. There's no external noises. I had to really stay focused to make sure that I'm landing on the right steps moving forward. So it was almost meditating to me. So there was a lot of that noise that was going on in my monkey mind. It started to quiet down. Mm-hmm. And so that experience was like, oh, I don't have to compare myself to others. I can totally do this. If someone can hike Machu Picchu, so can I. If someone can go out to the mountain or go swim in the ocean, so can I. And so you started to see the ability of how when you put your mind, there's the determination, the dedication, the discipline. When you put all three of those elements into believing what you are capable of doing, there's nothing that you cannot accomplish.
And it's interesting to me too, because I'm sure, and I believe I read this too, that it took you longer to complete this trek, but and your guide actually commented on that.
Yeah, he did. So the first day, it was typically the itinerary involves that any individual who hike, it would take you about like roughly 8 hours to hike. It's all ascending, all uphills, going up to the peak, and it takes 4 days. So typically you spend like 8 hours on day 1 through 4. For me, on that first day, I didn't know what to expect. I had this passion, I had this enthusiasm, and there I was on the trail, but it took me a long time to hike. And so the whole entire time, we had about 10 people who came from all over the world, a complete stranger, and we were all on the same trail. So there's 10 of us, and the whole entire time, I was the last one. And along with me are these donkeys. There's donkeys on this trail carrying supplies and like utensils. And there's donkey along this trail. So the whole entire time, I'm behind the donkey. You know how donkeys travel already pretty slow. It's taking their time. I'm traveling behind the donkey. And so the whole entire time, I'm behind the donkey, having a visual of, the donkey's back. And so I know everything about donkeys dropping and, all that stuff. It was pretty exciting for me from the view behind.
And, and here's the thing. There are people that could have taken that and thought, I'm going slower than everybody. I'm even going slower than the donkey. But the whole point is that here you are on crutches doing this.
Yeah.
And what not just physical strength, but what mental strength that takes to accomplish this. So to me, that's taking a story that could have gone, people could have seen one way and taken it one way, and you rewrote it and made it yours into, no, this is how this is going to be seen by, by my strength and by my fortitude in doing this. So how do we do that in our lives?
So I think the most important question that anyone can ask themselves is why? Why do you want what you want? Right. And most of us go through, I want to have a better career. I want to apply better job. I want to have more money. But we often forget that everything that you want, there's a reason behind the why. Like, why do you want it? What does that make you feel when you want it? And I remember when I was on the trail, that very same night, my tool leader sat me down in this tent out of the middle of nowhere. And he asked me, like, now you have a choice because you're walking so slow, you won't be able to catch up because the second day is the hardest. So how are you going to be able to catch up? So now you have two choices. Here are your two choices. One is you turn around and I can have someone escort you back. You can still make it going back, or you're going to have to push harder and you're going to have to walk faster on day 2, because day 2, you need to catch up. And I'm sitting there trying to decipher all this, and my arms were both my wrists they were burning because I just did a push-up for the whole entire day. I'm sitting there and asking the question, why? Why do I want to do this? What would that make me feel if I were able to actually complete this trail? And the first thing that came to my mind was why I wanted to do this is I don't want to come home and be laughed at. Right? I told everybody, I told the whole entire world, I'm going to Machu Picchu. Now, if I were to come back and say, you know what, I didn't make it, I decided to turn back, that's like a big joke, right? You made this far, you bought your ticket, and you're not going to complete the whole trail. So I was sitting there, and my question, the answer to my why was that, number one, I don't want to go back. Going back was not a choice anymore. So why do I want to do this? Because this is important for me. This is the moment where I get to decide how I want to live my life. I get to decide who I want to be. And I get to decide how I'm going to move forward. And I don't want to come back. I don't want to go back anymore.
Love that. So where in there, because I'm sure along the way too, as we tell these stories to ourselves in our head about ourselves, and I'm sure imposter syndrome comes into play. What are your thoughts on all of that?
So the imposter syndrome, it's real. And I do believe it is real. I did have this imposter syndrome because, I as far as my career achievement, I didn't just stop at high school graduate. I went all the way to get my doctor's degree, right? And I went all the way to live a life as a clinical pharmacist. And I have a roof over me. I have stable income. It's like a lifestyle that everybody dream of, but I didn't connect to it. And so that imposter syndrome to me was something like, oh, you're not good enough because you would never look the same as the girl next door. That was my imposter. But you have to remember that imposter is someone. It's something that we tell ourselves, but it's not. It's an external. It's a different entity. I like to think of it as an entity, right? It's something else. It almost sounds we just had Halloween, so it almost sound creepy. It's a different identity that our minds somehow had believed that and had identified it to it. And so what had worked for me in my journey is that I started to separate out my imposters. So it no longer becomes the voice of me. It's a voice of my imposter, whoever that looks like, whatever that looks like. And for my imposter, she looks like, I call her she, and she is a Barbie doll, and her name is Daisy. I even gave her a name. Daisy is beautiful, Daisy the tipsy. That's how I call her because she has this beautiful Barbie doll. She looks perfect shape, and in every single way, she has Ken, in the driver's seat. They're going on the Mercedes. So Barbie is living the life of her dream, but Barbie is not me. I am this separate entity, and I am fully capable of deciding what I want to do today that will make a difference in the world, the people around me, how I want to show up. My imposter, Daisy, didn't just disappear. Daisy is still here. And every once in a while, Daisy is going to come and check in with me and say, hey, are you sure this is what you want to do? And what I would tell Daisy is, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? You're going to come with me because I need someone to check in with me all the time. So your imposter become this, instead of an enemy or something that you're afraid of or afraid to have, your imposter becomes someone who is there to guide you. They're acting as a guidepost so that every step that you go, you know that you're making the most conscious choice.
So talk to me too a little bit about, because you coach women with the power of storytelling.
Yeah.
How do we know, or how do we find the story within us that will resonate, or that we can use as our secret sauce?
So I love going back to Carl Jung's theory of the brand archetype. So people who are familiar with the personality archetype, like the Briggs and Meyer personality types, there are a total of 12 different archetypes. And each one of us have all these 12 types living within us. But depending on your circumstances and situation, there may be one or couple that pretty dominant in the way that you interact with the world and the way that you see the world and perceive the world. And so for me, typically my default personality type is one of the warrior. It's one of the warrior, but I don't just want to fight through. I have that gentle, tough love. So I often talk to my clients about, I'm going to love you, but I'm going to also push you off the cliff while holding your hand. So that's my typical go-to personality. When I see challenges, I embrace it. I welcome it. I think about, okay, so here's my challenge. What can I do to come up with a solution? So that's a very typical warrior or hero type of personality type. Now, you would have a different personality type that you use on a daily basis that you typically go to. It could be a caregiver, it could be a lover or romantic, it could be someone of an alchemist or magician who believe like the world is such a beautiful place and we're here to transform everybody, right? And depending on which type of personality you have or you use in your everyday life, you tend to attract certain individual. And when you attract certain individual, they're really attracted by the way that you speak, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you present yourself in everyday life. So for me, I often talk about the journey of being the hero, right? So the hero's journey. And when people hear those stories, they connect to the hero journey because there's that bravery, there's that beautiful connection, there's beautiful overcoming adversity that comes out of that hero's journey. And they connect to it. Either they are looking to become the hero, or maybe they're resonating with the words that I'm using. So depending on how you carry yourself through your personality, and let's face it, every day our personality, we just show up, right? And it's very comfortable. It's very easy. You don't have to do anything outside of you to become who you are not in order to have that personality of who you are. And that becomes very important in branding, in, your visual, your imaging, how you carry yourself. So instead of being someone who's like, not real, now you become real. And that is your secret sauce.
Interesting. I had a gentleman on the show, and that's what we discussed too, is how knowing your personality type can benefit you. And so I actually did take that. And I want to say, because I'm an INFJ. And so I believe that's an advocate. And so it's interesting. So would you suggest to people that we do go through that exercise and find out what our personality type is so we can lean into that?
I think it's a fun way to know who you are. But keep in mind that your personality would change depending on your situation and different phases of our life, right? So if you were to think about life as a four season, every single one of us would be in a different season. So depending on which season of life you're in, your personality may shift it a little bit. So just for fun, I would suggest to go and check it out. And it's just nice to know like what's your dominant personality type. But in the most part, I think what is really saying is to really understand your underlying strength. You want to turn your strength, right? Because each of these archetypes, each of these characters or characteristics, it's speaking about a strength that you already have. So what is your strength? And in branding or marketing, a lot of time we also walk people through that SWOT exercise, right? What is your strength, your weakness? What are the opportunity? What are some of the threat that you need to be aware of? So think about your strength, right? Your personality is a strength to you. Who you are is very individualized, and your business, your brand, your everything that you do, it's about you. If there's no you behind your business, there is no business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that right there. What if we don't like the narrative as it stands? How do we change it?
So a lot of that has to do with the way that we perceive things. What is it about that idea or that narrative that you don't like? Can you see any underlying strength behind it? What is it that you do like? So what I usually like to do is take people through a reframe exercise. And I personally love journaling. So I would encourage people who haven't thought about journal, think about writing a journal or just writing words down. There's something about the beauty of writing things down. So when you write down your narrative, go back and read it again, right? What is it that you're saying? How true is that? And you may say, well, this is completely true. Okay, let's decipher a little bit more. Where did that idea come from? If it is true, is it your idea, or is it someone like maybe your mom had told you, or maybe you grew up thinking about this, right? So it's a reframe exercise by writing things down, writing your narrative down, and go back. And how would you rewrite it 2 different ways? So you write your initial narrative and go back to it, read it, rewrite that whole narrative again, okay, and rewrite the second time. How would you say this in a more neutral or perhaps a little more positive or affirmative, positive affirmation, a little more affirmative? And sometimes, that positive affirmation can be challenging for a lot of people. Then just do it neutral. Like put your shift on the neutral gear and just do it neutral. No judgment, and see what you come up with.
And I know that you have an exercise that, you can go on your site and fill out to see what narrative we're even telling. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that is a quiz. So it's a personality quiz. It's the Carl Jung's 12 archetype personality. So once you complete the quiz, it basically tells you what your dominant story type is. And with that story, so I told a warrior story. So for a romantic, they would tell a romantic story. So depending on what story you're telling, you can use that element to attract the people into your life, to attract the clients that you want to work with, to attract people who resonate with your story, the story that you're telling. Because who you are is going to be so much more powerful when you start just showing up. And the story that you tell your audience is a reflection of the story you tell.
And that quiz is attractclientsthroughstorytelling.com. But I will make sure that link is in the show notes for anybody that wants to go and take your quiz. And I think I need to take your quiz.
It's a fun quiz. It's a fun quiz.
So let me ask you this. If people get nothing else out of this episode, what would you like them to walk away with?
To harness your superpower. Like every single one of us, we have a superpower that's inside, the strength. What makes you different? What makes you unique? If you walk away with nothing else from this episode, you can truly start to believe in yourself when you can just find that one single strength that you do so well. Maybe you're washing dishes really well. That's a strength, right? Nobody else can do that. And that is something that we're celebrating. Maybe you can you can write really well. Nobody else can. So appreciate and celebrate that superpower, your strength, and hone it.
And I think that's really important too, because what you just touched on is it can be something that to us may seem insignificant.
Yeah.
But it's not in the grand scheme of things, because if it's something that we can do that somebody else can't do, then it's not insignificant to them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So with that, Michelle, I just have 4 final questions for you. First one is, what's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Oh my gosh. I would say that the best piece of advice is that, Michelle, just clean up your bathroom. Just clean up your bathroom. It's so filthy. You got to go in there and clean it up. And it drives me nuts if it's not clean. So I rub it. When I get stressed out, I go to my bathroom and I start scrubbing.
What is it about the bathroom?
Because you go and you see multiple times a day, and there's like mirror all around you. So a lot of time, I think it's shining on that imposter. Like, oh, I got to do something about this. I got to do something about this. In a way, it's a good thing, because then it motivates you to want to get things done. Right? If we were to see it negatively, then it's like, oh my gosh, I feel ashamed. I got to clean my bathroom. But in a positive way, it's like a reflection all around you. And this is the place where you spend most of your time in. So why not? Let it shine. Why not make it better?
Once again, rewriting the narrative.
Yep.
Share with us one thing on your bucket list.
I would say, funny you asked this question, because I thrive in checking off my bucket list. I would say my next item on my bucket list is to hike Kilimanjaro. I've been thinking about that for many, many years. So I would say hiking Kilimanjaro.
Yeah. Wow. Just instead of going faster than the donkey, make sure you go faster than the cheetah.
I know, right? I don't know if I can do that, but I will try. I will try.
When the toy companies finally get around to making an action figure of you, what 2 accessories will it come with?
Definitely a crutch. So I walk with a can. So definitely a crutch. And the other accessory would be a dumbbell. I think every woman should have a set of dumbbell.
Why is that?
Because you are capable of changing that light bulb. You are capable of doing things, amazing things. And that dumbbell is going to get you stronger. Okay. So just get up your seat and just take a walk or do something that makes you feel good. And that dumbbell, it got me there. So that accessory needs to have a dumbbell and a crutch.
Love it. And the last one, how do people find you if they want to work with you? And tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, so they can definitely find me on my website at elevatelifecoaching.org. And my book, it's a memoir. It's a journey of how I was, who I am, up until before I became a coach. So I talked a lot about what had happened in the accident, the places I grew up with, all my journey, including some of the bad romance, and that's all in there.
And the name of the book is?
It's called Perfectly Normal: An Immigrant Stories of Making It in America.
Love it. Thank you so very much for being here. You were such a delightful guest.
Thank you so much for having me. This is fun. I like this.
Thank you for joining us. Once again, I'm Marlana Semenza, photographer and visual strategist. Please comment, like, or share this episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss a thing. For more information on how I can help you create your iconic image, visit marlanasemenza.com.